I was around 16, speaking to a girlfriend, when I realized that it was important I study a little bit of astrology. I can't remember what we talked about, but I remember the impression I had that I needed to study astrology. You see, at this time of my life, I was living with different people. Live here today, live there tomorrow. There were certain places that I was that I felt, why is it hard to get along with people here? When you live with someone, it's different from when you just see someone every other time. When you see someone every other time, like maybe you see them in school or you see them at work or you see them when you go visiting, you know, they put up their best selves. But when you live with someone, that's wake up, go to bed, wake up, go to bed, spend the day together, there's a lot more friction. And so, if you're compatible, you would bond, you get closer to each other. Compatibility could be attraction, or compatibility could just be what I call it parallelism. Being able to just flow in the same direction easily without, crossing each other or anything like that. I realized that some people, living with them was easy. Like, everything was inspirational. Every moment, talking with them correcting you, them disciplining you. You knew that, or maybe because I had the privilege or the exposure enough to be able to compare worlds. I lived with some people and it was smooth. I lived with other people and noticed there was either a friction or a natural repelling where we just go our separate ways. I realized this and I thought perhaps this astrology or these stars, they could give me more information or explanation. And I studied that for about, let me see, till I graduated from university, which was a whole lot number of years later. The year I was graduating from university, I read a book, one of those books written on masculinity and stuff. And some way, somehow, the guy inserts a compatibility table. And what's even shocking is I've never seen that compatibility table anywhere else after that. I copied it, I took my time to study the table, I copied it out, and I have been doing my own research and experiments ever since. And I found that compatibility chart or that compatibility table to be at least 85% correct. That's 85 to 90% correct. Of course, there are some people you think are not compatible, but they find ways to make things work. Everyone is actually compatible at some level, like I said. If I were just to meet you at work, we could work better together. If we were to play together on the field as co-sports teammates, we could do that better together. You know, if it was just to be on top of the class and or whatever it is, maybe meet out to ball, we could flow together. But living together, like as if you're living together either as brothers or as friends or as company, you know, sometimes just a week, but you could already feel it. But of course, everybody's always wearing masks, social masks, as Robert Greene says, and playing nice in public. But you find out that this compatibility by the stars, it was quite accurate. For example, Aries and Aries is not the most fantastic combination. Aries and Capricorn as well is not a very fantastic combination by the stars. Now, if these two were to live together, Aries and Aries naturally repel each other. They like each other. I mean, they are seeing themselves, their own selves in another person, you know. But just like the laws of physics and magnetism and electricity, where the North Pole and the South Pole attract each other because they're opposites, or one part attracts the other part because they're opposites. But when you bring the two North Poles together, they repel each other. So they will come together, like each other, relate with each other, but they will never stick and flow with each other. They will always go apart their separate ways. Natural repelling. And that's what happens with an Aries and an Aries. They may even find mate ways to work. You see, they are married, 22 years married, because they are working, they are holding a certain goal, the marriage. But in terms of that synchronism, synchronic synergy, you know, each one would rather make his own thing, you know. Now an Aries and a Capricorn would butt heads because one is a ram, one is a goat. Okay, so all they know how to do is butt heads, which means that if they are working on the same goal, say climbing a certain mountain, goats are excellent climbers, rams too. So if their goal, they're working on a certain goal together, Aries and Capricorn are magnificent combination. They have equal respect and attraction for each other, but because of the natural butting of heads, you find an Aries and Capricorn will always go their separate ways. Not go their separate ways, really. They'll still stick together if they, but you know, there's just too much butting of heads. Okay? And so you find that these two working together might be good, but when they get to live together for peace and for, you know, just freedom or for peace or whatever it is, they would drift, you know, while one is here, one is there. But when it comes to showing up and being who they will always come together. If you want that peace and you want that freedom and you want someone that you particularly sync with, you might want to be in this on the secrets that I have positioned in my book, Compatibility Revealed Through the Stars. For one, I know that I'm not going to marry someone who is less than 70% compatibility. But even with 70% compatibility, I think I'm going to have much more of, you know, I want someone with 90. So you have the compatibility chart spread into 10, 30, 50, 70, 90. And if your compatibility is 10, like Aries and Aries or Aries and Capricorn, then on the long term, you'll be putting in more work to make your relationship work or flow or stay. You have to put in more cement and more sand, all right? But if, you know, you combine with someone who is a 90, like a Leo and a Gemini, for example, if that's what you decide to do, a relationship, you guys work it out in an easy, natural, flowing way. Naturally, initially, you might think we are opposites, we're not even the same thing, I don't really like that person is. But when you come together, there's that synchronic synergy I was talking about. So you might want to know more about this. Please send a message, drop a comment. I'll send you a free copy and a link to buy my full book. Thank you very much.